And we are live. Hi, good evening, everyone. I am Sharita Gaskins Tillett. Welcome to She Built It Boss Lady Chronicles. I am your host. I am super excited about tonight's guest. We're happy to have you joining us tonight. If you are watching us live, please say hi in the comments. Let us know where you're watching from. If you have questions for me or for our guests, definitely put the questions in the comments. Same if you're watching the replay. Hashtag replay, still tell us where you're watching us from, and still put your questions in the comments. And then before we get started, I just want to remind you that registration is still open for a weekend for me, Jamaica, which is happening June 20th to the 24th. I am able to keep registration open because we are actually going to be in a private villa. So I don't have to close it quite this soon. So if you happen to have some free time in about 3 weeks, we would love to have you join us in Jamaica. www.aweekendforme.com for more information. You can also feel free to DM me. I'm happy to talk with you over DM or on a Zoom call. So let's introduce tonight's guest. I have joining me tonight Dr. Judy Wright, who is a life balance and wellness strategist. Dr. Judy wears many hats, each offering a unique perspective on her life's mission to guide others toward balance, well being, and success. Her journey is a testament to the power of resilience, informed by personal experiences and a deep understanding of the challenges professionals face in juggling multiple roles. With over 2 decades in wellness, Dr. Wright's holistic approach is at the heart of her Life Balance Blueprint, a transformative program designed to help individuals sidestep overwhelm and burnout. Her engaging workshops and talks inspire audiences to prioritize health, embrace joy, embody resilience, and unlock their fullest potential, charting a course toward personal growth and professional excellence. Welcome, Dr. Judy.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Sharita. It's such a pleasure to be here. I've been following you for a while.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to have you here and excited to share your work and you with our audience tonight. I want you to start with just a little bit of background. Tell us, I know you're a physician. Tell us about that background, and then we'll talk about your transition.
Yeah. So I am a family physician. I went to school, was born and raised and went to school in New York City. And I knew pretty early on I wanted to be a physician. That was the
Yeah.
goal, as early as 8 years old. And I wanted to be a community physician. And so even as I became a sociology major in college, which everybody's like, what? Sociology? It all tied in. It
It
all
does. It
I
does.
really wanted to understand people and community, and so it all tied in. Um, and so as a family physician, we can take care of from the babies to the geriatric
Yeah.
population. We can deliver your babies. We can, do emergency medicine. Um, I worked in a variety of settings. So I taught academic medicine and family medicine. I worked in federally qualified health centers. I worked in nursing home. I even worked in corrections. And
Oh,
so,
wow.
yeah. And so I really liked the patient base. I liked interacting with my patients. I love a good story, so I loved uh just understanding my patients and taking time to understand them, to help them, and realizing before they were really digging into what was called the social determinants of health, right?
Yes.
Really understood as a family physician that you needed to understand the entirety of your patient,
Right.
thing that
Yeah, absolutely.
right.
Absolutely. Because it's all connected.
Right. It's all connected. Mind, body, spirit, the socioeconomic factors, all connected. And so I loved the patients. I loved working with the patients. And so, but I eventually transitioned because I started to feel overwhelmed, a bit burnt out by it. And
Okay.
and what I realized is it really wasn't so much the patients. That was one thing, because there were a lot of them and patients were becoming
Sure.
sicker and sicker. But truth be told, it was really all the red tape that
Mm,
went into
yeah,
medicine. Lots of
yes.
bureaucracy, lots of red tape, lesser and lesser medicine. All right.
Right. Yeah, yeah. No, I hear you. I know exactly what you're talking
Yeah.
about.
And
You
so
know, when you're spending more time on paperwork than you are on patient care.
exactly.
Yes, I completely understand what you're talking about.
And so that became very tiresome. It was taking the joy out of what, and it was actually hindering me from doing what I always envisioned as a physician, which was taking care of the patients with the patients,
Yes.
right? But as I saw fit, and not because there's all this red tape and stuff that
Mm, right, the metrics
bring
and the right,
exact
algorithms and all the things, yes.
algorithms. So I pretty much knew kind of early that that I probably wasn't going to do 20, 30 years in direct patient care.
So
Um,
I'm gonna stop you for a second. I have a question because I always like to ask this because we throw around the term burnout a lot,
yeah,
but I feel like it almost means different things to different people. So when you say burnout, how were you feeling?
I was beginning to feel exhausted. I was beginning to not want to be there. Um, I was beginning to feel detached. And
Okay.
that's something I didn't want to do because I enjoyed the connection with my patients. And when I start to feel detached, that was not a good thing. Yeah. When I start to feel detached from the
Yes.
practice of medicine, not a great thing at all. Yeah.
Okay, so now take me through the transition time. So you're feeling this detachment and this fatigue and all of these things. A lot of people feel that, but not everybody transitions, not everybody pivots. So I want to know, what is it that gave you permission or made you feel strong enough, or whatever it is. How did you come to make the pivot? And then
So
what was the pivot?
So, so the pivot was out of direct patient care and more into population care. I started working with the health insurance company, and really understanding the needs, mostly of the aged and disabled, and what they needed to be safe and as independent as possible in their homes. What gave me the permission? When I started realizing, I wasn't feeling burnt out then, but I started realizing this is not what I signed up for. This is not how I want to perform medicine. 2 years
Right.
in, 2 years
Okay.
in.
Yeah. Yeah.
It took me uh mm, maybe another 5 years to start making the transition. And then within 10 years, I was done.
Okay.
And I think the fact that I found other ways that I could use my knowledge and still affect change and health,
Okay.
because that was very important to me. Change and
Sure.
health and wellness in the community um, was what gave me permission to leave. And even then, it was not easy, um, but it gave me the permission to say it's okay, to leave. And if you don't like it, you can always
Mhm.
go back.
Right. 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 I think that you bring up a very good point because a lot of times we are afraid to make decisions because we feel like they're permanent.
Yes,
That, like we can't undo the decision, but there are very few decisions that we can't rethink and revisit. And
exactly.
so that's a very good point that, if you're feeling uncomfortable or unfulfilled in the place where you are, it's okay to look around for something different and to consider a different path because
Yeah,
and try a different path because you can always go back to what you know, but
absolutely.
you never know what wonderful thing is waiting on the other side for you.
You can pivot. You can pivot again. You can pivot backwards. You can do all those movements. Dance around in your life and be willing to try new things, which is not always an easy thing for me. And I don't think I'm alone as a physician, because I always say, when you become a physician, you didn't just become a physician overnight. You didn't even become a physician over 4 years. We start
Right.
getting early. We start doing
Yes.
stuff early. We start volunteering. We start this. There's a
Yes.
lot of stuff that you do over like a 10-year, 12-year period,
Yes.
all to be called MD or DO.
Yes.
You know? So
No, you're absolutely right.
you know, and it could feel like I can't do anything else. And that's how I felt. Like, what am I gonna
Right.
do? I did everything, every egg is in this basket, you know, but I kept the faith and I looked around and I was patient. I was patient about it.
Did you see other people who were doing different things? Because that's a, again, you hit on a really good point, because a lot of people feel like they can't do anything else. They're not trained, quote unquote, trained to do anything else. And,
Yeah, honestly, um, not really. But
okay.
I tell you what, I saw nurses doing different things.
Ah,
When I
uh-huh.
saw nurses doing different things, I
Wait,
said,
wait, wait a minute now.
hold up. You know,
Uh-huh.
so I started fishing around on the interwebs and looking, and I really wasn't finding, like, when at the time, if you looked up utilization review, it was all to the nurses, all to the nurses, all to the nurses. It
Yeah,
wasn't coming up physician. But this was my first realization of how the internet was beginning to track our movement,
yeah.
because then, maybe a year down the line, I get a mailing I get a piece of mail that was about a conference about alternative
Mhm.
careers for
Okay.
physicians. And I was
Yes.
like, where does this come from?
Sign up for this, right?
you know, and there I got to see all types of physicians that were doing different things, all
Ah,
types. And it's like, so that also kind of gave me permission to
yeah.
be honest.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure it opened your eyes,
Yeah,
because, again, we have such a limited perspective just based on, we have, kind of just our one formula that we follow through school.
yeah,
But then once you get out and you realize that I always tell people the possibilities are endless for what you could do,
yeah,
and the ways in which you could reinvent yourself.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So
So,
that was the first pivot,
okay. All right.
and
And then the next pivot.
the next I did that for years, and in fact I'm still working in insurance, albeit a different company. But the
Okay.
next pivot was the pivot to what I'm doing now, which is talking about life balance and my program on achieving life balance and dealing with burnout, or trying to, as I said, sidestep it altogether. And that came because I was feeling off balance. So I'm here to tell people that it's important to understand how to gain balance on your terms. It doesn't matter what job you're in. It doesn't matter
Right.
what setting you're in. It doesn't matter, you know, there's nowhere to run. You have to deal with it internally,
Yeah.
right? You have to deal with it internally because it's going to follow you wherever you go, there you are, and it's going
Yeah.
to follow you, right? So
Yeah.
so I start to feel that same way again. 2018, I just knew, I felt like there's something else I should be doing. I knew I felt stressed, but it's like people feel stressed,
Yeah.
so I really wasn't doing anything about it. And then I just kept going and going, and I was not the nicest person to be around at home, right? Which is a shame because I saved all that niceness for work. Um,
Mhm.
you know,
Yeah.
very agitated, things like that. And then 2019, I was diagnosed with cancer.
Mm.
So I had to be treated. My blood pressures were all off, everything like that. And in 2020, I went on medical leave and I got
Mhm.
treated for cancer, thank God. But also, I started to notice you're not taking any medication for your blood pressure, but your blood pressure is suddenly not controlled, normal,
Mhm. Yes.
right? Because
Yeah.
at
Yeah.
home, and I had to sit down. Nobody was letting me do a thing because I had to recover. And I
Right.
really had to start to look at how I was feeling was different. I had to look at that. And then the pandemic
Yeah.
happened. So now the world has slowed down to,
Right. Right.
and that's when I started to realize, Sharita, I think I was headed toward burnout. Like I didn't
Yes.
realize it because I was like, how
Yeah.
did you
Well, it was just normal, right? It was normal to just go, go, go and be stressed all the time. It was our
just
normal.
it was completely normal. People are stressed every day. Why don't trip, just keep going, going, going.
Right, but
And
you bring up a really good point though, as far as what that stress is doing to us that we don't realize it's doing to us. You talk about the cancer, you talk about the high blood pressure. There's any number of things. I often talk about when I was pregnant, I had gestational diabetes, and it was diet controlled most of the time. But when I was on call, just being on call, just the thought of knowing that anything could happen at any given moment, it was always high. And so that's, the cortisol in my body caused my sugar to be high, even if nothing was going on, just the anticipation of something.
yeah,
And so again, we underestimate how much our psychological state affects our physical body.
yes, absolutely, absolutely. And but one of the things I had to realize, I had to take accountability, right, for how did I get there? How many boundaries did I let slip? And why wasn't
Yeah.
I trying to manage this stress? I mean, we're doctors, Sharita.
Yeah.
I'm a
Yeah.
whole doctor. Like, and I was missing medical appointments. I didn't miss a medical appointment for my children though. I knew them in my head. All of those
Yeah.
appointments. I was making appointments for my husband, but I was missing my own.
Yeah. Because
You
we
know?
put ourselves at the bottom of the list, right?
Yes.
Everything and everyone else is a priority. We are
Yeah.
super women, and we can do it. We can just keep adding on. We can just add on
Yeah.
until we can't.
Absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. And I did realize that I felt off kilter. I felt off base. I wasn't giving time to myself, but I was giving a whole lot of time to work.
Yes.
Um, I wasn't giving enough time to my kids, my husband, and just being. There's certain things that give me joy. DIYing gives me joy. I wasn't giving a lot of time to that. So just realizing what balance looked like for me was
Hmm.
important. You
Yeah,
know.
and I mean, and the pandemic had a lot of negatives, but I think that that's one of the positives of
Mhm.
it, that it did give us the opportunity to slow down and to
Yep.
really assess what was important to us. And I think that's when a lot of people began to make transitions. And
Yes.
so why, so what did you do? And then how did you come to share this kind of work with other people?
So that's a good question. The first thing I did again was to become self-aware. I
Hmm.
became self-aware, and in my self-awareness, I started to take accountability, right? Because I can't manage what other people do. I can manage what I do though, and how I
Hmm.
interact with things, how I react to things, how I act. So I am still the person that's big, roll loud, in charge, but I also like my alone time and my me time, and I need that. When they came up with the term extroverted introvert, I was like, right. um, and so I do a lot of remote work. For some people, that doesn't work, right? They have
Hmm.
to be in office. For me, it's joy. All right.
Yeah.
It gives me peace, and it gives me some alone time, and it gives me time to think and stuff like that. So once I became aware, I started to take accountability. Then I started to say, well, what's one of the things that I need to do? And it became, you need to take care of yourself.
Hmm.
The first thing I started to look into was my self-care. For instance, I had a massage package. When the pandemic happened and I called them and said, I just want to know how much was in my package. Now, considering that it's once a month, I had
Right.
20 something massages in my.
Wow.
It means
Wow.
I wasn't using it at
Oh,
all.
2 years. 2 years worth of
Right?
massages. Right. Yeah.
Right?
That you skipped.
Um, but also understanding what self-care looked like for me, right? So I co-authored a book called Self-Care is Not a Mani-Pedi. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and it's funny because the person that used that title, I was the one that said it to her. So I was honored that she used that title.
Yeah.
Um, because I don't really do mani-pedis like that, right? I think they're beautiful. I think they're gorgeous. I think they're wonderful self-care for some people, but for me, not so much, right? It used to be,
Right.
but for me, not
Yeah.
so much. So I had to individualize my self-care and really understand what makes you feel recharged, what makes you feel grounded,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, and do more of that. Start to put it down. Start to write it in on your calendar,
Right.
and not just do fly by night. Not just do,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I think I might be able to stick it over here. I'll make that call when I'm ready, because the call never gets made, right?
Right.
So I
Yeah.
had to look at my self-care. I had to look at my boundaries and really define what my boundaries were
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and what were
Yeah.
non-negotiables. Maybe a little bit negotiable, but these are the parameters around that, you know?
So give us an example of a non-negotiable boundary, because I think a lot of women do struggle with creating boundaries because we don't want to be perceived as being selfish, or that we're not helpful, that we are, um, discounting the needs of other people.
Yeah. So at one point, work was so big to me. Obviously, if you said my children had their leg looked like it was hanging off, I shut down everything. But other stuff to do with my kids, I might say, okay, I have to push this aside, or you know, maybe we'll do this another time. I don't do that anymore, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because um, one of the things I realized having cancer and then immediately followed by this pandemic is time
Yeah.
is precious. We don't get
Yes.
it back, right? So where
Yeah.
my children are concerned, that's a non-negotiable, right? Like, even if I'm in the
Absolutely.
middle of a meeting and I may be running the meeting and that phone rings and it says school, stop.
Right. Right.
So that's a non-negotiable for me. A mildly negotiable would look like, seriously, I put something on my calendar and I'm not going to allow you to take that off.
Okay.
Because if we have on our calendar a meeting with our CEO, right? We're not moving that, right?
Right.
So we are our own CEOs.
Yes.
Okay, we are our self-care CEO, our healthcare CEO. So if we put something on the calendar that really feeds us,
Yes.
take it off unless there's truly something humongous that happened, again, like your children and their leg is hanging. you know.
Right. Right. Right.
so other than that, no, that should be an almost non-negotiable, you know. Um And so I always tell people, if you don't have boundaries, get some. If you don't know what your boundaries are off the top of your head, find
Yeah.
at least three and make sure you stick to those boundaries. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So you did the self-care, you did the boundaries. How did that become a whole program for other people?
Yeah. So just looking at how it works for me, but also working it with other people. It started off with me just talking to people about stuff to do, and one of my friends, she would take vacation. Let's say she took off PTO, and if something happened and it didn't go off where she could go somewhere, she might give it back. And I'm like,
Mm,
why?
right.
Why
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
you giving it? Did you not need that time off? It doesn't mean you have to go. If you don't get to go somewhere, you still get to stay
Right. Right.
home, do something
Right.
else. Like, why would you give that back? So then she started looking at that differently. And I was like, I don't care if you're home and you're scratching yourself. Like, that's your time, right? Like,
Right.
you know,
Exactly.
there are studies out there that's showing that there's a lot of physicians who take less than a week a year of PTO. There are 52 weeks in a year. To
Yes.
take less than a week a year, some of us are not taking more than 3 weeks. And then when we do, we're taking work with us. Where's
Yeah,
you time? You know?
exactly. Yeah,
So, just talking to people about, and they're like, wow, I didn't even think about it that way. But the whole balance thing, I know a lot of people, I was one of them, didn't think that balance was possible. And I think it's because when we think of balance, we almost think of like a seesaw, like, or the scales.
yeah, the scales. Yep. Uh-huh.
And, and we think of this two-piece thing. And they're like, there's
Right.
no way it's going to stay like that. It's going to go like this. It's going to go like this. You'll never be balanced. I think of it more, Dr. Sharita, as a pizza pie or like a pie, right?
Okay.
When they cut a pie, they're doing the stuff fast and then they cut that pie. If you look at the pie, the slices are almost never equal size.
No, they're not.
But,
Right.
but yet it works because each slice is holding up the side of another slice,
Okay.
right? And so does it always need to be equal? No, but it then makes the pie. And
Hmm.
so that brings me to why I don't like the term work-life balance.
Okay.
Life balance, I'm okay with. Work-life balance, work-life integration, not so much. Because let's go back to the pie. There's not two pies. When you say work-life balance, it sounds like two separate pies.
Yeah.
Life is this.
Or honestly, it sounds like work is just as important as life.
That's the first thing, right?
Yeah, like it's just as important. And I don't know about you, but no,
No,
not for me.
it's not right. But think of all the stuff that you're now saying. First of all, when did work not is not part of life? When did
Right.
that happen? Right? Work is
Right.
not on Mars and life is on Venus. What is that?
Yeah.
So I talk more on the personal life and professional life, but even in that, there are subsets to what is making up the work. So it's all part of the pie. When you look at the pie, there's going to be a slice that's going to be your professional piece. There's going to be a slice that's going to be your relationships. There's going to be a slice that's going to be your purpose and your passion. There's going to be a slice that's going to be your financial. There's going to be a slice that's your psychological, right? So I look at it more as a pie and not as these two scales, because I think that's what people are like, you can't balance. And I get it,
Right.
but that's why I don't like the term work-life balance. And I think
Hmm.
work-life integration was trying to get closer, but it still is, as you said, make it
Right.
work, this big thing, and then
Right. This big thing. And I mean, and I feel like that's almost, and I'm getting ready to go off on a tangent and I apologize in advance. But it's like this big deception where work is everything,
yeah,
and our life, like the things that are important to us, are secondary, and that's just not the way it's supposed to be. And I believe that that's why so many people are burned out and are stressed out and dissatisfied with the work that they're doing, because it's not feeding their souls. And
right.
so, I love what you're doing, that you found a way to integrate work that is meaningful to you. And not that medicine wasn't meaningful, but there's so many complications and restrictions,
Yeah.
to your ability to practice now, that I think it takes some of the joy out of it.
Yeah, and that's why I say life balance and wellness, because it's still part of your wellness. You start taking pieces out, right? That now the pie has all these slices missing.
Right.
Something is just
Yeah.
missing, and nothing is holding up some of these sides anymore. It's just sliding around in the box. I It's all part of your wellness, the mental, the emotional, the physical, even the financial wellness. I don't know about anybody else, but when I don't have money, I'm stressed out.
Right.
Right? So
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's one of the biggest stressors.
exactly, so um yeah, I that's why it's all, to me as a family physician, this is still part of health and wellness, you know.
Oh, it is. It is for sure.
Absolutely.
So tell me about the program. Like, what's the length of it? Who do you target, and what is the outcome?
Yeah. So I target
So tell us what it's called first. Tell us what it's called.
yeah, it's called the Life Balance Blueprint.
Okay.
Um, and it really is, when you're in a situation now, you need to do something now, right? You feel that beginning to feel overwhelmed. The stress is a little bit more than just some acute stress. It's chronic stress. It's not letting up. You're feeling overwhelmed. You're not at burnout. yet. Hopefully not, but even if you are, okay,
Mhm.
um, you need to do something now, right? And so it is a 4-week program to start moving you from feeling that level of overwhelm where you're taking back pieces of your life, because a lot of times the overwhelm stems from you don't even feel like you're in control,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
you you
Yeah.
you don't feel onus over your life. Everything else is in control of it. So it starts to teach you how to take time back, how to do mindful moments, because a lot of people, we're not doing anything. We're not even taking 15 minutes out in a day.
Right.
Toxic productivity is a thing where you just keep going, 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 and actually feel guilty if you don't fill up every moment of the day with something.
Right.
um
Right.
and so it really is there to get you back on even keel and give you tools to help you stay even keel, because what's happening is that we're actually keeping ourselves stagnant when we start to feel this way, and the bottom starts to feel like it's falling out. When you start to go toward burnout, it just starts to feel like the bottom is falling out from under you. And then also imagine now you can't move up. If your goal is to start moving up the ladder,
Right.
you can't even do
Yeah.
that. You don't have
Yeah.
it in you to do that. You're just trying to survive,
Yes.
right? um
Absolutely.
so this is really for um medical professionals, physicians and nurses. We go through it. And
Yeah.
I think if they were we were telling people for a long time, and people weren't
Mm,
listening. They were like, "You got it.
yeah.
You got it."
No. Yeah, we don't have it. No.
And um I think that I don't want to give it all to the pandemic, but I think the pandemic started to open some eyes at least. But this was going on. It's like I love when people say, "Oh my God, after the pandemic, there's a shortage of physicians and nurses," and I'm like, there was a shortage of
Right. There was a
physicians
shortage
and nurses
before.
before
Right.
the pandemic, right?
Right.
Um,
That's true.
so I don't want to hand everything over to the pandemic, but I do think there was some eye opening
Oh, for sure.
with the pandemic and what physicians and nurses and other healthcare professionals deal with. So it's really geared toward helping them deal with all of the many pieces that they have to deal with in their life.
Okay. So essentially like a toolbox.
Yeah,
A toolbox to help them to deal with stress and to learn to prioritize their wellness
they're,
and well-being.
absolutely. They
Okay.
cannot move forward and up without prioritizing their well-being first.
Right. Yeah.
And Dr. Sharita, as you well know, we're taught without them saying it out loud, we're taught not to do that.
Oh, yeah. For
Everybody's
sure.
wellness comes
Everybody else comes
ours,
first.
right?
Yeah.
So we have to take
Yeah.
that back and prioritize
No.
our well healthcare professionals leads to well communities, which leads to well populations.
Right,
So it's
right. Well, that's the whole point of my retreats.
yes,
It's a weekend for me. It's
yes,
all about you taking time for you to look at your life and to say, okay, I can breathe. Let me hear my own voice. What is it that I do want? Because you talked about that before, that a lot of times we don't even know what we want anymore. We don't know what we like. I was at a retreat recently, and the facilitator asked a question. She said she does a lot of solo travel,
mhm,
and she does that so that she can figure out what she wants, because so often she's doing things that other people want to do, like, because us as women, a lot of times we do things by consensus. We do what the group wants to do, or what our spouse wants to do, or what the
yes,
kids want to do, but we don't even ask ourselves, well, what do I want to do?
yes.
Where do I want to eat today? Where do I want to go? But she does these solo trips so that she can get in touch with what she really wants.
Yeah, you can finally hear yourself. And when you're not so busy, you actually have, because that was the thing for me, Dr. Sharita. I'm like, I know there's something. But when I tell
Right.
you, I don't even have the time to figure out what that something is.
Right.
The noise
Right.
was so loud in my head with all the things I had to do. There was no time until You know, I said, when you won't sit down, God will sit you down.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. And that's what happened. I got sat.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Well,
know,
I'm glad you're back up. I'm glad you learned the lesson and you're back with us.
thank you.
So now I know you've written a book. Tell us about your book. How did you come to write this book, and what is it about, and how can we get it?
Yes. So thank you so much. I loved writing this book. It took me a little longer than I thought. I loved writing this book.
How long did it take you?
Um, uh, Probably 10 months,
Okay.
because I was, you know, doing different things and speaking and working and spending time with my kids, so, and my husband.
Yeah.
So, it's the book is called Girl, Get Your Life Off the Fault Line: The Busy Professional's Guide for Mastering Balance to Shift from Overwhelmed to Empowered.
Okay.
And if you can guess, I'm a woman, and
Yeah.
I felt overwhelmed. And
Mhm.
I think that first of all, let me just say, I'm very proud of the book, and the book has tips that men can use as well. But women get a certain subset of extra stuff.
Yeah.
Right? So you
Yeah.
will be doing all this stuff outside and still be responsible for doing all this stuff inside. And as a
Yeah.
person who's part of what I call the sandwich generation,
Yes.
where, you know, I don't want to say geriatric mother like they like to say, but I was a woman who had two children after the age of 35.
Hmm.
Right? So I still have young children
Yes.
and elderly parents.
Yes.
Right? Um, and so you're not just dealing with the things directly in your house, you're dealing with the things outside of your house that's still part of your personal space. And you still want to, if you still want to have a life, you still got to see your friends, and you still got to do this, and you
Yes.
know, and it becomes a lot. And oftentimes you're the one making all these decisions. I love my husband, but he's never planned one of our vacations. That's always been me, right?
Right.
So
Right.
if
Right.
I want to go on vacation, guess who's planning it, you know?
Yes.
So just all of those things together made me want to really hone in on on professional women and how they can start to deal with the overwhelm. And again,
Yes.
it's not just about work. It's about all the pieces that make up the pie. So in the book we talk about self-care. We talk about talking positively to yourself.
Yes.
Because if you're a professional woman, if you're a little bit type A, you want things a certain way. And when it
Yeah.
doesn't, you could, you know,
Yeah. Be pretty hard on yourself.
you're pretty hard on yourself and you're pulled in so many directions. It's really easy to be hard on yourself sometimes. So I talk
Yeah.
about talking positively to yourself. I talk about perseverance and resilience. And not that you have to be this ultra strong person who never feels anything, but what resilience can look like for you, and why you need to take time for mindfulness so that you can be able to get back up, because you're going to get hit with stuff. how,
Yeah.
how that helps you, taking those times out for yourself helps you be able to get back up. We talk about being vulnerable. If you met me 5 6 years ago, nah, I'm from New York, child. I'm from New York originally. Vulnerable for who? Right.
Yeah.
you know
Yeah. Yeah.
um, and so we talk about being vulnerable in the book. So there's different parts that I think is so important. Our different fears, our fear of failure, our fear of success, because there's that,
Yeah.
right? And what that looks
Yeah.
like. And we talk about pivoting. We talk about
Okay.
not being afraid to pivot, because as we just talked about, you could always pivot back. You could always
Yes.
pivot somewhere else.
Yes.
You know,
And
and
I like the whole concept of empowerment.
yeah,
Because I think that that's huge, that we often feel stuck, like we don't have options and that we can't do a different thing, that this is the way it's always going to be, that we don't have the power to make things different. And so I love this whole concept of wanting to empower people. And I always call it giving the reins of your life back to you, that you
Yes.
putting you back in charge and recognizing that you actually do have that power to transform your life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that this is all part of being your life CEO and your self-care CEO, and just taking, as you said, those reins back, and not thinking things are never going to change, or that they can't change, because they can, you know. And when you pivot, you're
Right.
flexing a muscle to start thinking outside of the box. You really are, and be innovative,
Right. Yeah.
so
Yeah, for
yeah.
sure. Well, I have loved this conversation. We are running a little bit short on time. If people want to work with you, tell us how we can work with you. I know you have a master class coming up. Talk to us about that.
I
And you didn't tell us where we can get the book. Tell us all these things, but we're also going to put everything in the comments so people can find you and get a hold of all of the good things you have for us.
Thank you so much. So they can find me, they can work with me by going to my website, wellnesswithdrjudy.com, and you will find links to the book. You can get the book on Amazon, or you could get the book there. I will say, if you get the book there, you also get a free gift when you sign up. And we also have a masterclass coming called Stress Ain't Normal, right? Because we spoke about how we normalize stress all the time, but stress is not normal. It's inevitable, but it's not normal. So we have that masterclass coming up, and the first 5 people that sign up for that masterclass on June 12th, at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 3 p.m. Pacific, will get a signed copy of the book. And so it's
Oh,
called,
wow.
yes.
That's incentive.
So it's called Stress Ain't Normal. And I look forward to seeing everybody there, because I think it's something that everybody can learn for how to elevate their life when they stop normalizing stress.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. I love everything about it. So if there's a single best piece of advice that you can give to a professional woman who wants to get out of stress and overwhelm, but doesn't really know where to start, what would that piece of advice be?
I would say that piece of advice is to make sure you take time out for yourself. And you have to create that. It's not going to come to you magically. You literally have to create that pause time for yourself. And that type of creating that for yourself is self-care. And we always go back to the self-care. So make sure you create it, you schedule it. It has to be something that works for you, though. Create it, schedule it, heck, make it be known to others that you're not about to move it. Okay,
Yes.
and that would be the first thing, the first thing I would tell them to do. First step
Okay.
of doing that for
So,
yourself.
so you guys heard it. Take time out for yourself. Would you say schedule it?
Create it,
Don't
schedule
create
it,
it.
and let everybody know you ain't moving
Right. It's
it.
non-negotiable. It is a non-negotiable.
Yes.
Well, I really enjoyed this conversation. I look forward. I will admit I have not read the book yet, but I'm really looking forward to reading the book and, learning more about, your coaching program and all of those things. And I thank you guys for watching with us tonight. Please check out Dr. Judy. Do the master class. Be one of the first people to register so you can get a free signed copy of the book. Think about doing the coaching if you're looking for some guidance on how you can go from overwhelmed to stress free. Get in touch with Dr. Judy. And again, I want to remind you that registration is still open for a weekend for me. And as we were talking about tonight, it is an opportunity for you to step away from your everyday life. It is that me time that we're talking about. It's an opportunity for you to hear your own voice and reconnect with what your soul wants. What is it you really want, and how is that different from what your life looks like right now? Because oftentimes we are dissatisfied because there's a priority that's inside of us, and we have our core values, but the life that we're living is not congruent with those core values and those priorities that we have inside. And so it's about, finding that congruence, finding our way from where we are to where we want to be. And the beautiful thing about it is it's in a community of like-minded women in a beautiful setting where there's a full staff there just to take care of us and cater to us for a few days, which is something most of us don't get. So we do have a few spaces left, www.aweekendforme.com. It would be my pleasure to host you. If you're watching us on YouTube, please subscribe, share this episode with people in your life who need to go from burned out to stress free. So that's it for tonight. We will see you all next week. Thank you again, Dr. Judy, for everything that you do to help professionals and for coming and sharing with us tonight.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It was a
Take
joy.
care. Have a good night, everybody.